Now, it's been 2 years since Alexei Navalny died in a Siberian prison. Over the weekend, the UK and some allies revealed that the Russian opposition leader was murdered with a poison developed from dart frog toxin. They said that the Kremlin was to blame.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about this a little bit further. His friend Tatiana Fokina, who worked alongside Alexei as part of the Russian opposition, joins us now. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for talking to us on what must be a difficult day for you, because today does mark 2 years since Alexei Navalny's death. You knew him well, so first of all, tell us a little bit about the kind of man he was.
Alexei was incredibly funny. It's bizarre, but I think lots of people who know him well would say that was one of his first qualities. Incredibly resilient, sort of insanely brave, as the whole world sort of came to know. He was very stubborn, very tall. A great family man. I've never seen a relationship like he had with his wife Julia and the kids, and they were this sort of family where everything was a joke, and they were making fun of each other so much. And even in the times when he was arrested, even in the times when they couldn't see each other, they were so close. And that's the kind of man he was. And I think he almost treated all of Russia as his family, and this is why he kept saying that he cannot immigrate, he cannot leave Russia, he needs to stay with Russia and make sure that he does everything he can to change things in Russia. And obviously that resulted in the ultimate sacrifice one can give.
Yeah, Tatiana, as you were talking there, just towards the end of it, we're seeing pictures of Alexei and Yulia returning from Germany. And it's worth remembering that at that point he had been poisoned with Novichok. He returned to stand trial in Russia, and we know where that ended for him. I mean, what is left of the Russian opposition today at this point?
Obviously, Russian opposition is predominantly based overseas. Just because, to be honest, you cannot do or change much from Russian prison. So I think, and this is what everyone tried to persuade Alexei, why everyone tried to persuade him to stay in Germany, but it was just not possible. He really didn't want to. But there are various leaders of Russian opposition who are all based abroad. Not necessarily everyone sees eye to eye, but I think the main issues everyone agrees on: that the war in Ukraine should be stopped, that Putin is a killer and is holding whole country hostage, and these are the main things that need to be changed. Also, we need to remember, and this is very important, and it not gets said enough, that there are thousands of political prisoners still in Russian prisons, like Alexei, suffering, like Alexei being tortured and not being talked about much. So it's very important that the Western leaders, whenever there is a chance to exchange those political prisoners, take that chance, because there are people who are suffering for supporting democratic values.
And this weekend, of course, the UK and some of its allies announced that they believed that Alexei Navalny had been poisoned by Russia using a dart frog toxin. What did you make of that announcement? Did the news come as any surprise to you?
It didn't really, because I think we all knew he was killed, and it's great that so much work by so many people has been done to find out exactly what has happened. And I think it's very important for us and for the family to have that clarity. And whereas, dart frog poison sounds a bit unusual, but I think we now know that Novichok is something that has been used a lot, and we know how how it affects people. So clearly they've tried something that they haven't tried before, but it's essentially a chemical weapon. And it's great that we have that information, and we have that information supported by Western leaders, because all this way Russia has been saying that he died because the conditions in prison are tough, and he wasn't in the great health. But we all knew all the way that he didn't die; he was killed.
And Tatiana, just on that then, will that news have got through to Russians? We know that the Russian media is controlled by the Kremlin, but will any of that news of the actual truth of the matter have got through to ordinary Russians, do you think?
I think, some Russians still have access to free information. And obviously, this is another thing that is happening in Russia at the moment, that all the messengers are being slowed down. The access to the internet is harder and harder to get. So clearly, that is another attack on the information. But of course, there are still ways to access that information, and people in Russia would have learned that, not from television, not from the radio, not from state channels, but there are ways to find that information out.
Well, Tatiana Fokina, it's been so interesting to talk to you this morning. We really appreciate you spending the time talking about your friend Alexei Navalny. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Have a good day.